how many of you guys have ever seen Harry Potter before? Like, I love Harry Potter. It was one of those things, it was one of those things that, like, every time Chelsea and I have another baby, we binge something. Well, this time we binged the Harry Potter movies. And you know that scene in, which one is it? They all run together for me. The one where he's in, is it the Order of the Phoenix? Where they're creating Dumbledore's army and they find the secret room in it is the Order of the Phoenix. So they're in there, and Peter, or Harry Potter, is teaching them how to cast spells, do all the stuff, and he is this humble wizard who didn't know he was a wizard till he was 11 in the first movie, and comes, and now he's like teaching these people, and he's teaching his peers and his classmates. He becomes a person of authority, and he doesn't ask for it. People just come to him and go, Harry, you should teach us. And so he goes and he starts teaching them all the spells. How about Captain Phillips? Anybody ever seen Captain Phillips? This one's a little less common. It came out in like 2012. But it's a Tom Hanks movie, and basically he's a captain out on the sea, and he's off the coast of Africa and Somalia, and there's pirates that come and have been taking these ships, and there's reports of it. So the whole movie is about how their boat gets taken over by pirates. Actually, check out this clip from it. One of my all-time favorite memes is when it's got that, it says, the subtitle of the meme says, when your kid turns 18, and it has the Somalian pirate look at me, I am the captain now. And it's one of my favorite memes. Anyway, so this transfer of authority. See, last week Sam did a great job opening this series talking about the best example of authority, good authority through Jesus, and what Jesus did when he displayed his authority. And this week we're going to talk about bad authority. What happens when the people who take charge are not the people that you respect or admire or think should be in charge to begin with, right? If the examples I gave earlier, Harry Potter was the good example of good authority, then the Somalian pirate is the bad example of bad authority. And you contrast those two ideas of Jesus or Harry Potter, not saying they're the same thing, but Jesus or Harry Potter, and you contrast that with people in your life that you know maybe aren't the best role models, but they are in a position of authority over you, and how do you deal with that? How do you deal? And if you're not in a position like that now, you will be. Let me tell you something. All humans are subject to somebody else. All right? There's always a chain of command. There's always people who are going to have more authority or more power over you. And all people are flawed. As we know, Paul tells us in his letter to the Romans that all of us have sinned and fallen short of God's glory. Therefore, everybody's imperfect. And if everybody has other people in a position of authority over them, then not all of those people will use their authority well over you. And so the good question would be, what do we do when we have to deal with bad authority? Right? When we say authority, we're just simply meaning that it's somebody who has power or right to be in charge over someone or something else. Right? So these would be parents, teachers, coaches, me. Should I give an evil laugh, or I'll just move on. All right. And so, listen, when I was your guys' age, how many of you are 7th graders? 13 years old-ish? Got any 7th graders in the room? Do we not have any 7th graders here today? Oh, you do. You're just being shy. You're not raising. So, 7th or 8th grade, fine. 13 years old. And I'm 13 years older than my sister. So, my sister, when I was your guys' age, was a wee little baby. And so 8th graders, this would apply to you. But when she was like that 0 to 1 age, I can remember a handful of times where my parents left the house and I was in charge now. And I was responsible for said baby at 13 years of age. And I can remember one time in particular, she did what babies do, and it didn't smell very nice. And I thought, oh no, I have to change this, which wasn't a big deal because I'd changed diapers already by that point. Otherwise, my parents wouldn't have left me in charge when they had, I don't know, what they went to grocery store. Or I find out that when you get older, you do boring things like go to the grocery store when you have a chance without kids. But I don't know where they were. I'm at home, and all I remember is thinking, oh no, I have to change this. And I get her to the changing table, and I unbutton the thing, and I when you lift a baby's legs and pull back the shirt so that you can get to the diaper, well, when that shirt sticks to them, it's not a good thing. And so I lift the legs even more, and the shirt's still stuck, and I just peel back this layer of poop that has gone all the way up the diaper, up the back, and it was touching the back of her neck. I kid you not. 7th grade, 13-year-old me had to then take the rest of the clothes off, carry the baby into the bathtub, turn it on, hose the baby down. She's screaming like babies do, and I'm like trying not to puke, and I'm literally like, I don't want to get graphic. It was nasty, okay? Sometimes being in authority is not always a fun thing. Being in charge is not always what it's cracked up to be. But sometimes it's kind of nice. How many of you guys have been put in a position of authority before? Like whether it's your teacher leaving the classroom, you're like, all right, you're the room monitor. Let me know if anybody talks, right? Or maybe it was like in kindergarten when you were the line leader. Everybody remember that? Like I wanted to be the line leader, but it was alphabetical. And my name is Zach Wilkins. No matter which way you go, I'm at the end. So, yeah. So I always like the Bible verse, whoever is first shall be last, and whoever is last shall be first. And I try to quote that to my teachers, and they were like, no. And so I was always last. But I always like being in authority. What else? What else? Babysitting, maybe? Anybody babysit yet? Okay. And then anybody, I don't know, what else? Okay, so you're the only person in the house while your dad goes out to mow, and so now you're in charge of the house. You could lock that door if you want. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. We'll scratch that from the tape. But no, tape. Who uses tape anymore? You guys know what it feels like to get a little glimpse of power, a little bit of authority. Some of you older siblings in here know what that's like me. Some of you, you don't know what that's like yet. And I'm sorry for you. Someday you will, hopefully. Know what it feels like to be in charge of something. Maybe it wasn't of people, but it was of something like a group project, and you were in charge of a certain part of the group project or whatever it was. But there's tensions when it comes to being in charge, right? Sometimes you have things like poopy diapers that you have to take care of when you're in charge, and sometimes you don't always handle that the best. Sometimes you neglect the poopy diaper until it stinks up the whole house, and your parents come home and they're like, why didn't you change the diaper? And I was like, because I was scared. And so you don't do that anymore. Sometimes there's people in charge of your life where they always don't make the best decisions. And then it leaves you wondering, and why they are in charge. Why are they the person that you have to answer to? Why do they get to make this? Maybe they've taught you not to do something, but then you saw them doing that thing. And you're like, now you shouldn't be telling me what to do because you're a hypocrite, right? Like, I'll never forget one time the word crap wasn't allowed to be used in my house growing up until my mom used it one day when she was really mad for us not cleaning our rooms. I vividly remember it. And I said, I thought we weren't supposed to use crap, Mom. And she tried not to laugh and then stormed upstairs, like one of those, she's caught. So sometimes you see, in more serious things than that you're like, you should not be in charge because you're a hypocrite, right? Or maybe you see people in charge that just honestly don't live moral, good lives, and you're like, why are you telling me what to do, right? You should not have power over anybody because nothing you say is good and nothing you do is good. Sometimes the point is we don't always trust the people who are in charge, right? Sometimes they even threaten or hurt us. And what do you do with that? And that brings up a lot of emotion. That brings up a lot of tension points. So before we go on, let me just say, if that's you, if you have somebody in your life that is in a position of authority over you and you are not feeling safe by that person, you should talk to somebody, right? I know that you would be surprised how many people are in positions like that and don't bring it up because they don't want to say something. But you should talk to somebody, and this is a safe place. So no matter what your relationship with authority is right now, it's good to figure out how to deal with it because, like I said at the very beginning, no matter where you're at in life, there's always people you got to answer to. There's always going to be, when it's not your parents or your teachers, it's going to be professors in college. It's going to be your boss at work. It's going to be, maybe you work up the chain of command and you become the president and CEO of whatever it is, the company that you started out in, or maybe you start your own company, well, you're still answerable to things like government and regulations and things that you have to do and taxes. And, well, maybe you become president of the United States. Well, then now you're answerable to your constituents. So there's, in a roundabout way, you're always answering to somebody. And there's always people that are going to hold things over you and have some power over you. So how do we deal with authority? Last week, Sam gave the great example of good authority. And this week, we're going to talk about some not so good authority. What do we do when we have to deal with bad authority? So in our game today, Name That Teen Bible Edition, we talked about one of them whose name was David. And he was appointed to be the king at your guys' age. But the problem was he wasn't king yet. There was another guy named Saul who was currently king. And when Saul learned that David was anointed to be the next king and Saul wasn't dead yet, he goes, "You're a threat to me and my kingdom." So you know what Saul does. If you grew up in church or if you've heard the story before, you know Saul tries to kill David on multiple occasions. Now, how would you like to work for somebody who's trying to kill you, right? That's not good, right? That doesn't bode well for you. So David did the reasonable thing, and he disobeyed, and he ran. And so David's on the run, and he's probably wondering, God, I'm supposed to be king soon. Like, I know that I'm not perfect, but I thought you had my back. And, well, the king that's there now that I'm supposed to become next, well, he's trying to kill me, so what do I do? David's on the run. He's away from his family. He's away from his friends. He's in hiding. He fortunately gained some allies along the way, but you should just read the whole thing if you get a chance. But here we find something that happens. See, Saul was in relentless pursuit of David. And in fact, some of the Psalms that you read are from these moments where David was running and he was asking these questions. We know David was asking why to God in a lot of ways. But we find a point in the story where Saul is trying to kill David, and he's been chasing David around, and he's gone and hidden in a cave, okay? And David is hiding in the cave, and, what happens is Saul comes into the cave to do what, babies do that thing. Grown-ups do that too. Most of you have done that. Some of you have done that today. And I'm proud of you. But Saul comes into the cave, and he has to do. There's no toilet paper. But he had to relieve himself. So Saul's sitting there in the cave. Little does he know, David is also in that cave. You want to talk about awkward moments? So David has every opportunity to come over and slit Saul's throat. And Paul would be none the wiser. He could come over and just no more poop that he has to deal with, because then he would be king, right? I got this from Evan, our kids pastor, who left and is now doing awesome things. Not that he wasn't before. We all love Evan. He's still here at our church, which is great. We still hang out sometimes. But he left this to me when he left. And I could have used a real sword prop, but I thought this was so much cooler. So, do you guys approve? Okay, cool. So, David has every opportunity to take care of this problem that he has, this bad authority that's lording over his life and ruining everything. But instead, let's read what happens here. We read in 1 Samuel chapter 24, David crept forward and cut off his head. No, he didn't. He cut off, what's it say? A piece of the hem of Saul's robe. Now that's not as exciting. It kind of gets better though. Just wait and see. So David crept forward, cut off a piece of the hem of Saul's robe. And if you think that was crazy, first of all, it shows skill, because he crept up on a man who was doing his business and was not heard. He clipped a piece of his clothing off and was not discovered. And if that wasn't crazy enough, going in for the smell and all of that entails, check out what he does next, which is even crazier. David comes to the front of the cave while Saul goes back to his little army. And David comes out of the cave and he goes, holding up his sword and holding up the cloth. that he ripped off of Saul's robe. And he goes, "May the Lord judge between us. Perhaps the Lord will punish you for what you were trying to do to me. But I will never harm you. As that old proverb says, from evil come evil deeds. So you can be sure I will never harm you. May the Lord therefore judge which of us is right and punish the guilty one. He is my advocate, and he will rescue me from your power." And you can see he's just waving the sword and the robe. And I bet Saul's looking real red right now. Embarrassed in front of his army. I bet he turns around and realizes, oh no. Like you know that scene in movies where their pants rip and they're like, oh, you can see his little booty or you can see his undies. I don't think they had undies back then. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. But either way, Saul suddenly realized he had a breeze where he previously didn't. And probably his army noticed too. So that's embarrassing also, if the whole situation wasn't embarrassing enough. But here we see this perfect example of David, who could have taken matters into his own hands and finished it once and for all and taken care of his problem. And Saul was in violation of, one of the 10 Commandments at least, attempted murder, right? Saul was in violation of trying to go after his neighbor and the person God happened to anoint as king, because Saul was no longer efficient as king because he stopped listening to God, which is why David comes along to begin with. If Saul had just obeyed God to begin with, then, I don't know, God may not have anointed David. But the reality is Saul was disobedient in a lot of ways, and so David comes along and Saul gets jealous, and envy is one of the 10 Commandments too, right? And so Saul tries to take care of this with murder and fails massively on several fronts. There's other times when David's just playing his harp in Saul's throne room and Saul throws a spear and misses. So Saul's just all around not a very good guy or talented at anything, I guess. And so we see that David had every opportunity to make this problem go away. And he had every right to. In fact, his army was mad at him. It's like, why didn't you just kill him, right? And he says, well, no, it would not sit right with my conscience, because I know that my conscience is clear and that God will deliver me from anything evil that happens. And God will be the judge. And so we see in this amazing story that no matter what situation you're in, no matter who is in authority over you, you can always choose to be honorable. You can always choose to be honorable. And that's not always easy. The high road people talk about, that's choosing to be honorable. And most people don't choose that. But you can. And that will set an example for you. David was arguably one of the greatest kings of all of Israel. And in large part because of his humility, because of recognizing that God is the one who's really in charge now. God is the captain, not me. And no matter how much power you acquire in this life, God will still always be the captain. And so David understood that, and he chose to have honor, and that changed everything for his life and the life of his constituents, the life of his people. So first, if you were to choose to be honorable, I would encourage you to think about what you say and how you say it. So we've all been in a situation where somebody is in authority over us and they do something that is unjust, and we can either respectfully decline if it's something that violates our conscience, or whatever it is, we can choose to say and to talk back in a way that is respectful. So, all due respect, I can't do that. I'm sorry. Some people you've seen have responded in other ways. Maybe it was when your parents ask you to do something, and it's responded with a door slam and screaming, "I hate you!" right? Or something crazy like that. You can control how you say what you want to say. And so think about how you respond to people in authority. You could, bludgeon them to death with your words and how you respond. Or you could choose honor. And you could deal with that like a mature person. So think about what you want to say and how you want to say it. Secondly, remember that they're human too. Like I said earlier, we're all flawed. We all make mistakes. So sometimes people make mistakes because their heart's not in the right place and maybe they won't change. But sometimes people make mistakes because they're honestly trying to do their best, and in your view, they're just not doing the job that you would do. And so Sometimes they make mistakes, and we can give them the opportunity to correct it or do a better job next time. And we can remember that they're human, and they're just trying to do the best that they can most of the time. So even if their intentions are not noble, remember that they are human, and you can still choose honor. Finally, do what is safe for you. And this goes back to kind of what I briefly mentioned earlier. If somebody's asking you to do something that you know you shouldn't do, or asking you to keep a secret that you know you shouldn't keep, then talk to somebody, okay? Don't try to keep that bottled up and just deal with things on your own. Your conscience will tell you and inform you, and I feel like the Spirit will guide you. You'll know when lines have been crossed, and you should talk to another trusted adult about those things. Do what's safe for you. You can always choose to be honorable, and I think David is the perfect example of how to face really bad authority and do it in an honorable way. So as you guys get ready to go to your small groups, what's one way you can choose to be honorable to someone who's in charge? I love you guys. Let me pray, and you'll be dismissed to your small groups.